for educational policy analysis group, which means we can review things, analytically go through it, tear it apart, and then come up with an opinion what's best for our community.
And I'm Shelley Evans. I've been here 3 years now. And
That microphone is not really helping.
is this one?
Yes.
Is that working now?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Shelley Evans, and I've been here 3 years now, and I just kind of saw in the community the decline in the city, basically, and the happiness of the residents in a really short period of time of when I was coming here. And I was hearing things from multiple directions, and it made me start doing my own research and seeing that something's kind of amiss. And why are we going down this path so quickly? And from the research I had done, that I saw things coming from one direction, I'm looking in the social media stuff one day, and I see some stuff that Donna had posted. I didn't know her at that moment, but when I read through her material, it just connected all the dots of what I was seeing on a larger scale that was happening right here in Sedona, and it was as if we're like becoming this poster child for something we don't really necessarily want to be. And that it just takes the residents and our way of living just kind of out of the picture of as we move forward and going from zero to 60 or A to Z extremely quickly, before we can even take our breath and assess what truly is right for the people. It's just kind of going in a really fast direction one way. And Donna was able to bring those pieces together, and we just kind of joined efforts to try to really give a voice to the city. And we have a lot of people that are supporting this whole effort. It's a cooperative effort, and bringing the community together to try to really see what we can do moving forward, not just in home rule, but moving forward to bring this community together to get a voice to where we really stand up and we really are listened to. So that's kind of my goal, is to make this an ongoing effort for the community, pull together and listen to each other, and then be that stronger voice for our city council.
So you can see up on the board, Sedona.One Community Information Center. We do plan on expanding and making this ongoing on every element, so it won't go away. So we will create the think tanks and the community items, and then we'll take those as a group or individually to city council or any other organization that we need to make change. So we do a lot of surveys, we do a lot of polls on Facebook, and then we also do petitions on change.org.
Okay. You want to go ahead and pull up that first slide?
No, we're going to do the finance. Now, this finance one was given to us today, so we're going to speak to it because it was so powerful. It should say, yeah, that's it. So when we look at the finances for the city of Sedona, we kind of don't pay attention. It doesn't really make any sense to us. What's 50 million? What's 100 million? What's the difference? How does PBA? How does all these numbers go? Some people like numbers, and some people don't. I'm kind of a number freak, and I'm an info freak. So, but the impacts of the financials play a huge role in our community. And the community members end up paying if something were to go wrong with the city of Sedona. And a lot of people don't realize what would happen if something went wrong and the economy crashed and we couldn't pay our bills. The residents would get stuck paying the bill. And so our next slide.
Oh.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we can play it by ear if you have a question that's burning.
I do have a question. You just said that if something goes wrong with the city, the residents would be stuck paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
How?
How? Because your houses, the property owners, will technically get tagged on to the issue.
I think in the couple of slides that we're going to go through, that'll help make that more clear.
Yeah, and so, if you want to speak up, just say your name so we know who you are. What's your name again? John. Okay, John, thanks. Okay, so when we look at this side, this one here, in 2020, 2021, the budget was 51 million. The baseline was, before that, was right around 30 million. So we got home rule in, and I have the home rule numbers on another slide a little bit further for those years, but the home rule number they predicted was lower. And then we jumped up to 62.7 last year, and this current year, they're estimating 112 million to 110 to 112 million, which is significantly different to the estimation that they gave us in 2018. The estimation for 2018 for the next coming year was 42.8 million. But when you look at that, those numbers, they're a huge difference. There's a lot of infrastructure put in there, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong that would create an issue for the residents. The outstanding debt, I don't know if Shelley, you want to talk to this. When we look at the outstanding debt and the lease contracts, the next slide, sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying. Okay. On the outstanding debts, let me see here so I don't misspeak. We have basically in 2019 we had 23 million in outstanding debt, and in 2021 it went down a little bit to 20 million, and then 28 million, and then if you'll see that we're jumping up to this year the 50.2 million. The new bonds that were issued, there was like I think an additional 10 million bonds of new issued bonds or refinanced bonds, and we have the lease contracts and stuff in there as well. And what happens with the bonds and stuff along those lines is the higher that our budget is, the more we're able to take out in bonds. It's like the more they actually have access to not just the budget of that 100 and so much million, we have more collateral and more expenditures that we can utilize, so they actually have the ability to take out more bonds. And these bonds that we're getting there is if something happens and we have a downturn in the market, which is kind of projected, then things aren't going that way. They talk about the taxes that we actually collected through the pandemic, how it went astronomically higher than they thought it was. So we have excess money in the bank and they're dying to spend it. And so here it is. They're trying to put everything in there at a time that cost is way higher than it should be. And we're on a downturn. So why would we rush to spend it right now when the costs are so high and we don't know what's going to happen in the market? And so basically, if we sit here and we put these expenditures out there and we use the money that we have, and we have taken out bonds on that money that we're wanting to spend in this annual budget year, and we're taking out those bonds and making that happen, if something crashes and it takes that downward turn and we can't pay on those bonds, then we are at our level, the residents level, the businesses level, the property owners are reliable for that debt. They're liable for that debt. So
and the number estimated would be about 5,500 per person or 11,000 per household.
At that 50.2
2
million. So, okay. You ready for the next slide?
Yeah.
Go ahead. And the City of Sedona capital improvement projects. So the capital improvement projects actually is jumping up from, $42.3 million from one year to the next. There is a lot that's going into those capital improvement projects that, why? The cost of material right now is extremely high. And I think I heard, I won't quote the numbers, but it was a huge increase in cost of construction at this moment, where the same thing that would have cost $100,000 a couple years ago is now costing more like $400,000. So the cost in our expenditures has gone way up. So why would we want to jump in and make sure we're spending it all right now.
So tourism is supposed to take a big dive downward, and we're already starting to see that. In some of the like STR rentals and that kind of stuff are starting to decline. Of course, that tourism market it comes out a little bit further. People plan it, but we are seeing a decline. Now the hotels are seeing a decline in occupancy, but their room rates are up high. So that's typically how they pivot each other. But we are predicted to lose a lot of tourism. And if we lose tourism, why would we put ourselves in a high risk factor? Now, those STRs that are rented out, they do pay 7% sales tax on every dollar brought in if they're inside the city limits. It's 3.5% sales tax, 3.5% bed tax. And while you may hear that they don't contribute, that is not true. So when that great big STR around the corner from your house, and it's a great big house, and they have a party, and it's $1,000 a night, then they're paying on top of that $1,000, 7% to just the city of Sedona. They end up paying, I don't even remember the amount, but it's like 11, 13% total, because they still have to pay the state their portion of the taxes. And then they have to pay the city of Sedona. So the revenues for the city of Sedona are high to have STRs.
Okay, and looking at this, the City of Sedona sustainability projects, it's basically in this, there's other agendas, you know, that go beyond that Sedona has kind of become a poster child for, where we're getting marketed in Japan and across the country. And we have a lot of hot topic buttons, the trigger buttons, the climate action plan, the sustainable tourism, affordable housing, and Sedona in motion. And those are buttons that are there to get our emotions up and make us think these are all great and these are all good projects. But there actually is kind of an agendized items that are going into that, where it's kind of wanting to control the direction we're going, and it goes right along with tourism, not residents. And we need to like pull that back to our local businesses and our local residents, getting a little bit more of what we're supposed to be getting. The direction from our city council should be more resident and local business driven than tourism driven. We have, we have to look at the tourists, because the tourists are here and they're a big part of our industry and what we do. But it's more about making that balance match with the residents and the businesses, rather than bringing the tourists all in and funneling them in.
And so I'm really big at what I call info tracking. So info tracking is something like a statistician would do for you. What they do is they would take like one program that they say is sustainable, and like Sedona Cares, and that we pay the Chamber of Commerce X amount of money for. And if you follow the advertising, you follow the marketing, it all leads to rent a room. So it's really not a true organic program. And then you sign up, and then you become part of the list so that they market for you to come back and stay in Sedona more. So what is the difference between marketing and sustainability? And we have to have a separation, and we have to have units of measure in order to track the performance records. And we don't. We basically just throw it out there, and whatever happens, happens, but nobody ever goes back to see the efficiency and the effectiveness of those programs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. That's a good question, and maybe we will go ask it.
Yeah, it is a
So
good question
it's a good
to
question,
ask.
and we're going to start doing that. I'm retired now, so I can pretty much do whatever I want, but I have had businesses here for 30 years. So we're going to start reaching out like I did to Camp Verde, and get one-to-one conversation going. But that would be a really good question. and the finances. We're going to get to that in about a half a second. Okay? So it's all connected, I promise. Okay. So,
Yeah, and this here too, the land acquisition, we do have $20 million in the budget for the land acquisition to buy back. That's actually to buy back the cultural park that we basically sold for $7 million not too awful long ago. So that's a little bit of a sore spot for a lot of residents. And the public-private agreements for affordable housing, it's like Shelby right here. The Sunset Lofts have been approved to go in here up to 4 stories high, is my understanding on that. And so there's those public-private agreements that are being made with the city without voter approval or voter really awareness of what's going on. So, and the Uptown parking garage is estimated at $13.74 million of that $110+ million budget. And actually the budget is going, they've got a meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock if you're interested, that they're going to be going over and approving the budget. It's the chamber meeting for the chamber's budget. Sorry about that. And then the Sedona in Motion, it's, another $29.74 million that is in that budget. And so, John, will you go ahead and pull up that other slideshow for us?
okay, and this slideshow is going to get really direct. So you say, okay, how do those numbers translate? And how do they translate on the level of the residents? Now, there's some people, they want to see the financials first because they want to understand the catalyst that creates this foundation of it. First of all, in the state of Arizona, we have the Arizona Auditor General. They define the standards and they establish the procedures for accounting and budgeting. It is not limited to cities and towns. Colleges, schools, fire districts, they all have to follow these guidelines. It's not something that somebody made up and is restricting somebody. Every state has something. California is different than Arizona.
And they were designed to actually be a protection for the people. They weren't designed to squash a city and not let it use its funds. It was designed to protect the people, because when you turn over your checkbook and turn a blind eye, you don't know what they're going to do with it. It's like there has to be accountability measures in order to keep it there. It's when the community turns really complacent and doesn't pay attention to what's going on for a long time. But when things start getting bad, then we start wondering what's been going on right under our noses. We have to be good stewards and watch how the money's being spent and watch how our city's being run. And that's where we kind of get to it. It's like it's gone in one direction so quickly, so fast, ramped up, that it's kind of gotten away from us. And now we're like, okay, let's catch our breath. Let's catch up. Let's put a pause on what's going on so the residents and the small businesses here can actually reassess what needs to happen with the direction of Sedona.
And remember, the Auditor General, they are the ones that set the policy, and they also do the auditing, which is really, if you want to get into the grass and see what they do, they do have a lot of really cool things on their website. And you can see, like, if somebody took some money out of a school or that kind of stuff, so they go after them and they create solutions. We want to go to the next one.
I forget I'm manning that.
The state expenditure limitation is the standard finance accounting. It's not anything negative that a lot of people like to put out there. It's just a simple mathematical equation, and the way that the policy is written, that it does population and inflation, and then you can add on to it your expenditures, your debt repayment, your voter approved items. And if you are on state baseline, then you are able to do a one-time override. It must be requested by city council. It has to be the voters must approve it. It is for a specific amount, but it can have details as far as the purposes. City council can disclose more.
There is not a line item veto. They put one, it's basically a yes or no on the budget that they come up with that you're voting on. But there are purposes. They're supposed to have the purpose listed. And to me, it'd be very prudent for a council to make sure that they have made that transparent on what they're asking for before they bring it to a vote of the people. So at that point, it's about cooperation with the city and the community and making sure we're involved.
And we have over the last 5 years or so really a lot of approvals on building and things happening here that just never aligned with the community plan, never aligned with the original, like 4-story building and some items that were built in the flood zones and that kind of stuff. So when we look at the financials and we look at everything in total, we have to realize that the impact of those initiatives and priorities by city council are the driving factors. Your priorities and your initiatives aren't necessarily theirs. And the city council is here for the residents, the voters. They're not here for the tourism. So when we talk, if we go to the next slide, we talk about, okay, we have baseline. There's a lot of cities and towns that operate under them. This last year, we've had a couple more moving to what's called permanent base. Permanent base is an alternative expenditure limitation. It's just called permanent base or PBA. And like Camp Verde, I said earlier, they were on state-imposed limitation. They added a wastewater plant, and they bought a water company, and their option was to go to permanent base because that gave them a stabilizer. They knew what they needed, how they needed it. They bumped the state baseline up to those current needs for the 2 services, and it goes up every year from there. So that is also a mathematical equation. Once the voters approve it, it automatically goes up every year based off of population and inflation. Mm-hmm. I think he's got, in my opinion, he's got it in reverse. So, because what state baseline is the basic guideline from the state. The voters don't need to approve that. They don't need to approve it because the state feels comfortable with those numbers that the voters have a say-so in there. There's a really, maybe we should show that little video. There's a really cute video from the state, the League of Cities and Towns, and it's about budgeting. Do we still have that link on our?
It's on the website.
Yeah, it is a really cute, like
that
2-3 minute video that explains budgeting at a level that I thought, oh, this is just so cute. I wish that I could do that in person and explain it to people. But every budget, every city, town, anywhere, they have to have a budget. So while he looks for that, hopefully he won't take too long. But the permanent base has to be voted in, and it's a stabilizer. So I think what Scott Jablow was talking about was talking about the one-time override.
The state of Arizona.
Okay, and so
the one.
The one, we are headed that way, but that is such not a negative, meaning that a one-time override, the city council, when home rule fails, which I feel that there's enough voters that are upset with things, is the best thing for us to do. Because we have all these programs and we're running so quickly that people don't know what's what and what's located where. And so by going away from home rule, back to state baseline, it allows us to pause. We're heading into a recession. It allows us to just pause it, and that one-time override is intended to give the voters and the city council the ability to get whatever amount they want. They need $100 million, they have to put a plan together. If they want the residents to support it, then for this particular community at this particular time, I would say they want to give more information versus less. Because right now we have a flow where a lot of residents are upset. They're upset with their house getting destroyed or their road getting destroyed or they can't park on their road the same way. So there's a lot of different issues and a lot of different things in motion, like Talakapaki underpass should have been done, I don't know how many years ago. Does anybody remember when the underpass was approved? And, you know, when they created Talakapaki North, they promised to put a solution through. We didn't put an on-demand crosswalk, and that is the bottleneck. And every time I go through that, I'm like, ugh, you know. It's crazy that they haven't fixed it, and we have cars lined up, and then we have people waving. Yeah.
There, on the right, cities and towns. Cities and towns. Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to just ask this of you. In an age where homegrown, homemade, homeschool, home healthcare, homeland security, home ownership, and even home for the holidays is valued as better, as good. What is it about home rule that's negative? And
Okay.
not so good for us?
Okay.
See, I want the answer to that.
Okay. The answer to that is the. Okay. So there's a lot of different things that it's wrong with home rule. So we'll jump forward a little bit. First of all, the power is at the city council level. It's not at the voters level. The city of Sedona does not have voter-approved sales tax or bed tax. Most cities and towns, if you look at very fine models that run very well under home rule, like we'll use Prescott, they have voter-approved sales tax, voter-approved bed tax. City council can't jump it. So home rule works for a city and town when the voters are engaged and they're allowed to vote on how much their sales tax and bed tax is driven. When they go to a city like Prescott, and Prescott has a beautiful Office of Tourism, their model is spot on. The benchmark lines up exactly perfect, and it's on Sedona News Report, and if you want a copy, just give me your email and I'll send it to you. They have stepped 1, 2, 3, 4. Tourism Advisory Council are the businesses in the tourism industry within the city of Sedona. It doesn't go to a regional chamber. The bed tax or the tourism tax stays in the city, and it's used for infrastructure. And they use just a little bit that is controlled and monitored for marketing for the rodeo events, because they are the rodeo, they're one of the biggest event locations. Here, it's the polar opposite. The businesses don't have a voice or say so, and the taxes imposed on them and the residents are raised by city council. They raised the sales tax. Did anybody notice? We had the sunset tax. They made it permanent in 2020, I believe. And they all voted to do it except for, I believe, one, Tom Lampkin. How our city council votes is very critical. Their slideshow, why they need home rule, is to have enough money for tourism. Go through their slideshow, go one by one, and look at their priorities, and their priorities are tourism. That's not the way it's supposed to roll. And just because you want more tourism doesn't mean that you bring quality of life to the residents. It's actually the polar opposite. So by raising the sales tax, raising the bed tax, then there's a sense of urgency to spend every dollar of it. And if you raise the sales tax and the bed tax, if you don't, they feel like under home rule, we have to spend that money. And so we have so many projects that I see, and I think, what a waste of money. We built a parking lot in Uptown, 1998. Ask me why I know, because I had a business in Uptown. And we spent a fortune on it. And that was supposed to fix everything. Well, there was never nothing was ever fixed. It was never monitored. Nobody knew if it was used. I would go over there, I'm like, okay, we spent $20 million on a parking lot, and this parking lot's sitting empty. So the city of Sedona is very good at starting projects. They're not good at communicating to the businesses or the residents, and the people are being taxed very deeply. So let's talk about the sales tax. The sales tax is not just on, if you go to the grocery store and you buy deodorant, that's a sales tax item. It's not if you go to a restaurant and you buy a meal and you pay, your 3.5% to the city, and then you pay your county and your state and all that kind of stuff. It's more than that. Most people that are in a commercial building, they have to pay the 3.5% sales tax on their rent. And they don't have a say-so in how those taxes are used. 3.5%, when you look at some of these restaurants that are paying $20,000 a month, is not a little bit of change. So the residents and the businesses are getting overburdened. We have commercial rates for commercially zoned businesses. Their utilities are charged at a commercial rate. Our utility bill in one location ran about $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month, we had to pay the city of Sedona a franchise fee, and we had to pay a 3.5%. When you take your rent, you take your utilities, you take all these other items, then you make it based off of sales tax. What's charged gets to be spent. And there's never a pause button, a performance measure, or a check. Then you're out of balance. And that's what I feel we have here. But there's lots of reasons not to have home rule. Home rule to me is the catalyst for all these explosion of things. Like somebody said to me, hey, I used to ride my bike every day, 100 times a day, and I used to live on Dry Creek, and I would cut across. Sometimes I would go to the grocery store, sometimes I'd go up in the mountain. I was big on it. And somebody said to me, do you think that we need to spend $200 million on a bike lane from where you live to this location? I said, no. There's an easy path right there. There's no need to spend these kind of money. So home rule was voted in 2018. It was a very aggressive year. No, it's been in Sedona forever, but Sedona has changed. So the way that city council used to be, it used to be when I got here, if I had a problem, I'd call the mayor. He'd come over. Everybody knew each other. You'd go to a restaurant, everybody kind of knew each other, and everybody supported each other. But then what happened in 2012, we had a lot of action that the local Chamber of Commerce felt like they were being cheated, and they started campaigning saying that the city of Sedona wasn't supporting them. I have all the records. I have how they got businesses to sign up. They came to me. They tried to get me to endorse them. And they literally went to the city of Sedona in 2013. They tried to get bed tax and sales tax. They convinced the city council to raise the bed tax 0.5%. And I'm looking at John now because I want to see his reaction. And then they were going to give the Chamber of Commerce 55% for their exclusive use for their regional members. So what we did is we entered into an agreement, a private partner agreement, and we said we're going to give you bed tax 55%. We'll just take 0.5% hike, and then we're going to hand you 55%. And yes, the AG did find it a violation of the gift clause, and they had to claw back that contract. But the city of Sedona doesn't want the public to know that. That 0.5% increase was subject to be used in the tourism industry, but it could be used for impact fees and parking lots and traffic control or the Lida Talakapaki. because it all is around those items. So not all dollars had to be blown into full-fledged regional marketing. When we talk about regional marketing, I have tracked this for years. They have marketed Saudi Arabia. They have marketed the world, and they got us primed. Their members are not exclusive to the tourism industry. 71% of their members are either outside the district or just not in tourism. That is not an authorized tourism model. And so when they go to Saudi Arabia, they're marketing real estate. They're marketing construction. They're marketing things that have nothing to do with tourism. And when they did so, as the Chamber of Commerce, being paid by the taxpayers, because only $400,000 come from their members, and the rest of that $3 million comes from the taxes, that 55% of the bed tax, then they're going there and they're traveling under our dollar. And the CEO started her own company called Tourism Experts International, and they sold the model that they did to Sedona: raise your taxes, give it to us, or give it to me because it was a private company, and we'll market your location, and your taxes will go up, and then we can get more of that money to market you again.
I just want to ask, how will we, the voters, vote against home rule? How will this happen in the next 6 weeks? How are we going to, there's 5 of us here. There's 5 of us.
The, this,
Yeah, well, the house was full on Sunday.
When you say full,
Every chair was full. Yeah.
we had
And we had more.
we had more
Yeah.
set out because that was more for the residents only, where this one here we were going to try to target more businesses.
Targeting businesses.
So
Yeah. But that's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
and that's
We can-
okay. And if we need to,
I really, I'm trying to figure out, am I being disruptive to
no, you're fine. You're fine.
I'm trying to figure out, I really want to know, I want to ask some really strong questions, but I don't want to upset anybody. You both have talked about the city council, and the question is, in 2 months, we're going to vote in another city council.
We are.
That's a good question.
And
The question is, all the candidates are for home rule.
no, they're
no,
not.
they're not.
Who's not?
Jennifer Strait is openly not for it. Scott Moffett is not. Two. That's two that I know. And then there's a few that are
Kurt Gelbach is against
against
it. Samara Armstrong has stepped out saying it's up for the people. I'm going to take what you give me.
and so the
Oh, he
he's
wants
home
home
rule 100%. He can't function without it.
Do we need to make sure that Scott doesn't get elected mayor? In other words,
Yes, please.
this is the issue because I'm sitting here and I'm saying, okay, I believe what you're saying, and I would even like to spend more time on these home boards, so I think I got it. The question is, what groundswell do we have to elect the 2 people that have come out and said, home rule is not good, and our mayoral candidate that says, I'm not going to go for it? We got to get those people in office.
Well,
And we've got to get the
So-
500 people that will
we
vote to vote.
we need the voters.
We need the voters.
But the people that we're putting in office is vital too. But no one home rule is what we need. So if the ones running for the candidates speak out on it, it helps at this point with the voters. But them being for it or against it doesn't matter if the voters say no. The voters say no.
All right, so how are we, this group, you people who have spent a lot of time and energy on this, I love your brochure. How are we going to do it? Because I suspect that
We're
not
ra-
going to.
We've already had a meeting today with a group full of people that we had a pretty good outreach with. We meet here every Thursday to gain momentum, to hand out the mailers, to go door to door and talk. We have mailers that are in the works that are going, those mailers there'll be mailers and they will go out soon.
And you're very welcome to join. And so it's an action type group. We're raising donations. We're going to do the mailers. We like to do them too. We'd like to do 2 different formats just because there's some people that feel the financial portion of it needs to be incorporated somehow to get to their door. And
what I see is this year we have the momentum. We're seeing that change. We're seeing the people come and start understanding it. When I walk through my neighborhood and I stop and talk to someone, some have no clue what it is. And it takes 5 minutes to quickly kind of explain it, and they, and your neighbors are kind of trusting as well too. And so when you can quickly speak on it, the more you know and the more you understand, they are quickly on board with, so I vote no. Okay.
Different time. Scare tactics. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When
Yes,
home
absolutely.
rule is in play, it's basically that budget that they've got coming in. Our hands are tied to whoever we elect. Whoever gets in there and might make a difference in office, their hands are tied. Everything that's already set into motion will continue in motion. No, it's not by
under
the
home
state.
rule.
It's under home rule.
So we don't realize
How do we get home rule passed?
passed. We don't want it passed.
He means failed.
We wanted to.
This is what I'm trying to get at here. I want to say my statement one more time because I think, we're not going to get the voters to give up their disinterest and their complacency. I'm happy
Right.
that you said that this room was full.
And we had a full room when we did our morning one too.
Thousands of people.
And I agree
We know.
with you. So what I like to tell everybody is that if we sit back and we do nothing, then we get nothing. If each person reaches out to your neighbors and hands 10 people that card and gets 10 people to get 10 more people and do a ground swelling of it, we can make this change.
You have to make it clear. I'm going to read my question again because not just you, but this is true of all these policies and politics. Listen, I want to ask again. In an age where homegrown, you get it?
Yes.
Homegrown, not big farms, not pesticides, homegrown. Listen to how good that
I know. I know.
Listen, homemade. Oh, can you smell it? Not Mrs. Fields, but Annie Mae. Homeschool. Not those clowns over there that don't want to teach that and don't want to do that, but homeschooling. I'm going to take you through it, darling. Home health care. Don't let them die in an institution. Let them die peacefully around the table with their family. Homeland security. Home ownership. In a time when nobody owns, everybody can't afford anything. And home for the holidays. Every year, the news story is the airports are backed up. There's not enough airplanes. There's too much weather, and everybody's trying to get home for the holidays. Now, ladies, what you guys need to do is tell me why home rule.
Well,
That's what it's called. Why is that
no,
good?
that's not what's on the ballot.
But home rule is what it says here. Stop home rule.
It's what it's been dubbed. It's the nickname that they've
Yeah,
all
I
put into
underst-
play.
yeah.
Yes.
To turn it around to say that all this homemade, homeschool, home health, what we're talking about is the exact
Opposite. It is.
That's what you're missing right here this afternoon. You need to say home rule is
Bureaucratic.
Is giving the bureaucrats here locally too much control.
Too much control. And that we would have probably gotten to that slide if we...
Say it in the first 5 minutes.
What we did is we were excited about our numbers thing that was given to us today, and we started a little backwards.
I'm not criticizing.
No.
Help. You got to tell people less filling. What is the filling guideline? What is it? I used to do it all the time. Fewer calories, less filling, and less expensive. Miller, that's what you got to do. If you haven't done it yet, and home rule is not home rule.
Home rule is not... We said home rule is not homey.
Home rule is for fools. Because our elected officials, no matter how good they are, you just said their hands are tied if this doesn't change.
Well, the new people coming in, their hands are tied. So if home rule passes, then new candidates coming in, it's all consent items and those projects. But the superpower is if home rule fails, then everything pauses the day after it passes, even with the old city council.
Perfect.
And that's the power. Okay, home rule is your catalyst. It's the catalyst of your engine. And if you take that catalyst and you look at what's happening in our town, all the destruction, all the sales tax revenues being a priority, if you take it out and you say, okay, I'm going to steal that catalyst, and you don't have a catalyst converter, then your engine can't work and you have to pause the engine. And when you pause the engine, it enables you to look at your contracts, review what's going on, and it allows the new city council to make improvements and set a new policy. But it also gets rid of the waste, and it gets rid of a lot of different things.
I want to ask, do you ladies know who or what entity is driving the push once again for home rule?
The Lodging Council and the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. The
Lodging Council and the Chamber of Commerce.
And the Lodging Council and the Chamber of Commerce, would they agree with that statement that you're just making? Would they agree?
Doesn't matter if they agree, because I have documented proof to prove that they have PACs and they're putting hundreds of dollars in there. The last time, yeah,
Thousands.
they did radio ads. Not only did the chamber do radio ads, but the Lodging Council.
Beat them. How can we beat them? I'm only shouting for the people at home, not you. How can we beat them? I mean, honestly, that's the thing.
You're right.
I mean, how can we beat
The
them?
only way that we can beat them is if we stand up together. And in 2018, it got dirty. I mean, I did a home rule debate, and I had people calling me, threatening my life. I had the Red Rock News write
Why is it going to be different?
because now okay, I don't know how to put this. Now I don't give a shit. You know, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what they say. And I hate to use that term, but I'm sick of these cronies like Segner and these people calling people names. I've got an email saying he's in war to keep home rule, and he needs more money to promote home rule. I'm tired of these bullies and these people telling us how we live. It's time for the people to rise together and speak together. I don't care what religion, color, thoughts, anything. But if we don't stand up for the residents and make the residents have an equal platform, we lose and they win. And right now, Sedona is on the edge. We can't handle any more tourism. And this program, to spend that much money, is putting us in the risk factor. If home rule fails, if we have an ability to reevaluate our community and align it with our community mission.
We have been.
It's like we're doing the pookie.
Pretty much what you're saying was in our slideshow that we haven't gotten to. So everything that you're saying, we pretty much have in there.
Because as you said, you're a numbers person and so forth. I'm the presentation person. And that's how I
That's
make it.
obvious. Yeah, you do a good job.
I'm trying to help you guys because I believe in our common need. You can't tell me we're going to get to it. You got to say right up front. All the words you hear about home, all the feelings you have about home, are good, except home rule. That's what you want to say, okay? All your good feelings about home, even a homie, is a good thing. Home rule for Sedona, Arizona in 2022 will be the beginning of a fast end. We must halt and freeze the funds so that our newly elected, it's transparent, and that the lack of home rule, the vote against home rule will cap, the state will cap spending, and that will put it back in our hands, or something like that.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
You got to get there fast because
And you know what's so funny is that when we first start doing this, the criticisms that we got is that I was too emotionally charged with those kind of statements. I'm telling you the truth. So the the Chamber of Commerce is not a voter approved tourism authority. But when you look at years prior when home rule worked, they didn't do these overzealous, over obnoxious spending things. They are in a love fest with the Chamber and the Lodging Council. They are looking at us as being money driven and not people driven. They don't care about you. They care about the taxes they can get and the taxes they can give away because they're vote buying with it. That's it, plain and simple.
One of the things that Scott Jablow actually stated when they came to our first meeting that we had on Sunday. And one of the things he was stating is that basically we get the budget as a people to look at the same day they do, which is 6 days before they go and vote. They have 2 days to look it over together and vote on a multi-million-dollar, $112 budget. They've got 6 days to look it over, and they get to sit down with the city manager and get it explained. So who can go through all that in 6 days and vote on it?
And can I ask you all, or I would like to ask the people, why is it that they get the budget 6 days before?
Exactly.
Is that a law that
No.
So
And
what I want to know
is home rule empowers the city manager and the city staff, and home rule is the driving factor. And that is what home rule is. No, they don't read things. They don't pay attention.
Well-
They're overwhelmed.
tomorrow, did I hear you say that tomorrow
Is the day, 1 o'clock,
that they're going to vote on the budget
for the Chamber of Commerce.
My question is, who in this room is going to the chamber?
We've been going to those meetings.
No, but where are the hundreds of people that were here the other night? Are they going?
Some of them do go, not all of them.
You have to understand.
I know what you're saying. We're moving that way. That's what we're trying to get.
Unless it's standing room only,
They don't listen.
even when it is, they don't listen.
Yeah. The first year the Chamber got their money.
I don't want to complain. I don't want to bitch about this. I'm
Yeah,
I want your enthusiasm here on a regular basis with us, helping us drive it.
well, but because that's what it takes, John. I mean, really, when you think about it, 2 people can't do it, 4 people can't do it. We have to grow.
And that's our point.
Like I said, the first year the chamber got the 55%, the room was packed. The room was packed. And guess who was the only one that spoke no, do not give them this contract? And the rest, why? They were afraid. The businesses are afraid. The people are afraid. They figure, the bed tax doesn't affect me. The bed tax does affect everybody.
When you say, see, I am so curious. My wife and I have been in this community full-time 11 years. We have been here as weekenders from Phoenix for 20. So we're not strangers to this either. But we haven't been paying attention because, did I say for 10 years we were weekenders? Okay? And also, we have a business. We had a business. We're retired now, but that's beside the point. The point is, I'm paying more attention to this. And I think our mayor is terrible. I think our vice mayor is terrible, personally. Okay? Both of those people are running again. And I don't know a thing about Samari. Okay? I'm going to the mayor's thing. I think it's tomorrow night. It competes with this thing, as a matter of fact. I don't know if anybody noticed that.
We did.
Anyway, I'm going to go, and, if Samari, if that's her name, says, I'm going to leave it to the people, she's not getting my vote. I want somebody who's going to say, God damn it, I'm the mayor, I'm taking over. Okay?
Did I
As
say
far
that
as
today?
the law will allow.
Yeah.
And as the mayor-to-be, vote for me and vote against home rule. Those 2 things will enable the city to freeze the budget so that we can take a breath and get our community plan. Instead of rushing through it, we take our time. Now, I don't know why I'm getting all my about this, because I'll tell you my honest truth. I don't think enough people in this city care to change this situation. I don't think so.
It is up to us to drive that. It is up to us to drive that and get them here. That's my whole point is it doesn't even stop with home rule.
The time at the city council, I was at a city council meeting 2 or 3 months ago where they proposed a building like Floss that we're talking about here, over at Jordan Road. There were 150 people, standing room only, and the Planning and Zoning Commission voted for the proposal.
Okay, you've got a good point here. So home rule is also attached to the policies and the procedures at City Hall. So by having home rule, we're giving so much power to the employees that they are the ones setting the policies and they don't want to be bothered with you. And when the planning and zoning people come in, they interview you. They analytically look at you, they ask you questions, and if they don't like you, you ain't coming in. They pick only the people that will bobble head towards their agendas, and they do that through every group at City Hall. And I can prove it. So back in I think 2012-13, I said, what the heck are you doing? You're moving to a citizens engagement program. Jesus, you're
know that the Planning and Zoning Commission interviewed people to come on the commission 3 months ago. Okay? It was open to anybody in the city that was 18 years or older and had a lobotomy. Okay? You could be on the planning and zoning.
No, I can't be on the planning and zoning because they actually informed me that I don't qualify to be on a city committee or a thing because it would be like putting, well, Steve Jobs in there. So, which is the most ridiculous thing I ever heard in my life. I'm like, what? What the hell? Seriously, John Thompson, JT, he told me that to my face. And so, but then you've got people like Furman on that planning and zoning committee, and he's running for city council seat. If he gets elected, we're going to go down that same twilight zone. Yeah. So, but the policy, if you pause home rule, not only do you have the catalyst to stop the spending, you have the ability to stop the insane policies of allowing non-residents and cherry pick people at City Hall.
That is what you need to put in your literature. That was perfect. So if it's on tape, play it back and put it in your writing. And stop saying pause. It's not about pause, it's about freezing. You're freezing the budget like we're doing with Putin. That's why gas is $5.95 here. Because we're supporting the war against Putin. We're freezing his assets. And so we have to, you understand the
I do, yeah. And if we do freeze it, then even the existing mayor and city council, they have to, the day after home rule is declined, they have to stop they have to stop all programs.
Perfect.
All programs. They can't do any multi-year programs because they have no ability to gain the financing.
Now, why is Steve Segner against this? Why?
Because he gets $2.5 million to $3 million a year via the Chamber of Commerce. And the city of Sedona awards him money for employee housing units. After he takes 3 duplexes and he converts them into short-term rentals. Those short-term rentals, he asks them, I need...
You have proof of what you're saying.
I absolutely, and I would never say that allocation without having proof.
She's posted it on social media.
I posted on social media. It's most likely on Sedona News Report. The city of Sedona, during the pandemic, voted to give Steve Segner money to build an employee housing unit on the back of one of the duplexes that he converted into an STR, and they paid him. I mean, to find these things are not easy. They're not transparent. If we're not involved and we're not engaged and we're not welcoming a diversified community to help us and to share that knowledge with, then we lose. We can't gain any traction, But Steve Segner, he's the biggest bully ever. And that's part of the problem. Like the smear campaigns he did, I had to take the poster that he did, I blew it up, I took all his email and I had to blow it up and I put it all over social media. Scott Jablow is another one. We have a slide of what Scott Jablow told me on social media in regards to the exchange of taxes from the lodging council to, he says the lodging council gave the city the taxes. What? A lodging council can't give the city taxes. The taxes are the city's. It was the opposite. They entered into a private-public partnership, and that would also stop. All no-bid contracts would stop under a no-on-home rule.
I want to go back to your early slides, if I might. I don't want to go back to them. I just want to comment about them.
I can't remember where we were. I think we were probably talking about these.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you a question about I want to go back to the Steve Segment thing and the Philly thing. Because I want to know who are the people, I really want to know the names. Who are the bullies that are driving, because who are the ones driving the staff? Who are the ones doing it?
Well, I think on that, it's like we have the email that he actually sent out in 2018 when they got their PAC together and they raised over $45,000 to market for home rule and against the war on people who wanted home rule.
And he does get these candidates elected. So Steve Segner, when Sandy ran, he was her campaign manager. He raised a lot of money. He actually lives up in Thompson, outside the city, but he uses his El Portal to vote in city. Now, that doesn't make him, it makes him a voter, but it doesn't make him a full-time resident because he puts his head out.
But if we go to that email, it is everyone that was basically everyone on the lodging council that he was sending that email out to,
Plus,
and the head of the Chamber of Commerce.
But the emails don't stop there. I have the email where He campaigned against Cliff Hamilton, and you've been around that long, right? Where you remember Cliff Hamilton ran, and he promoted Sandy, and he called us all flatlanders. And a very aggressive, not a good person. But the city council were elected. Scott Jablow, Moriarty were heavily funded from them. And while Scott Jablow can say, prove what I did illegal, I'm not saying you did anything illegal. Who gives to your campaign? And when you look at Sandy, her campaign was funded by the lodging and the chamber people and the chamber's vendors, because they knew if the chamber got $3 million a year, those vendors down in Phoenix would be fed those monies, and it would be unlimited.
And how wrong is that? Because we're fighting our own monies that is going into the chamber. We're fighting the taxes, and what we are gifting the chamber, we're fighting that and marketing against that, what we, the people, really want.
Have you heard of Sedona Residents United?
Check.
Yes.
Check.
And Kelly, I think.
That's just his passion, and he doesn't need a microphone.
Yeah, well, from my knowledge, it's Ann Kelly,
Yes.
and
Do you think that they've got a good thing going? Do you support it? In other words, why can't we combine with them?
Ann Kelly was supposed to be here tonight. I don't know why she wasn't able to make it.
Yeah, so the whole principle, and I've spoke to Ann about this a couple years ago, the PAC portion of it is one element. The educational side of it, where we have fact-based analogies over how the candidates are voting, how they're spending, and all these kind of things, is a separate type of identity. We can make a yes or a no on a policy. We can get out there. We can get people engaged. When you co-mix the candidates and you try and mix that all in one, it doesn't mesh because it gets lost in translation. So people think that they have a Republican Party. So it started as a Republican Party action group, and then people were upset. Just Facts is neutral. It doesn't care how you're registered to vote. It doesn't care anything about the candidates. We don't endorse candidates. We review and we post how public officials vote, what they do, their actions, and we can do that, and we're protected under the 501c3. We're a tax-deductible donation. We can do radio, we can do TV, we're going to do Backfire, where we get people at the table, where we have you back, and you can show us your passion at the table. The first Backfire show was here in Sedona in the early 90s, and that was a round table, and a couple of them were held at my places of business. And we're going to plan on doing that kind of thing back. But you're right. You can't do it alone, and you can't do it separate.
And that's why we're holding these. As many as we can. We're getting boots on the ground, as many as we can, to hand out what's going on, get them passionate. If they need more information, get them to a meeting, or let them contact us, or send them to our website. It's like it's got to get out there to the best we can. All we can do is what we can do.
Do you think, I'm speaking to your organization, not just the two of you,
Right.
obviously, it happened, but as you say, there are more people. I guess I am skeptical. I don't want to be. I'm just confessing that I am skeptical that when push comes to shove, most people today are going to nod their head yes and basically do nothing. And I don't know what to do about that, but I just don't know. It's got to be crisper. It's got to be, if Steve Segner's name comes up, my question is, who's the anti-Steve Segner in your group,
Donna Joy.
or in Ann's group, or in Save Our Sedona?
Well, and I'll say, I will say that for the last 10 years, I have stood tall. They've threatened me. They've called me names. They've done everything in the books. And I have stood tall for the residents. And I did have businesses here. And I did have a loss of business by doing so. So when Steve Segner would smear somebody, I would say, take a shot, make it public, say, we don't do that. This is the driving factor. I've connected the dollars and connected the dots. If you were to walk in my house right now and you were to walk upstairs, you would see file after file, everything very well documented, and there's nothing to be at risk. But until the people have had enough and they stand up, it's going to continue. I do believe we are making a difference now because he has gone silent. He has gone silent. And over what? The last 3 weeks. So he's been put on notice that his behavior is very well documented. And every time he does something, that I'm like, I have a screenshot of it. And
There's somebody else, and I know we hate to name names, but there's only 5 of us here, and I'm missing dinner, so let's get to it. Are there other people's names?
what about you? What do you, now it's interesting that you bring that up because I got a call from an older Sedona resident and they said, why isn't people doing this? Why isn't people doing that? Why isn't people doing that? Well, I'm like, well, why haven't you done it? You bitch, you call me a bitch, but yet you don't do it. So, I mean, we have to get to the point where we say, okay, let's take action. We have people going door to door. We have people doing uptown canvassing. We have mailers going on. We have presentations. We'll talk to 2 people. We'll talk to my neighbors, you know.
We're flooding the farmers market
Yep.
with flyers and stuff as well as we can as well. 4 to 6 on a regular basis right here. Yes.
And it's grassroots. They're all volunteers. We're just trying to make a change. But we can only make a change when we reach out and we get more 5 people. Now, you have more knowledge on home rule than most people. Most people, they need this. You don't need that. Your mind works in a faster mentality. And that's cool because I get it, you know, because I have a tendency to do that too. I jump over here and I'm a little bit hyper and a little bit neurotic. So, but I get it. And I'm not saying that you're that way, but you're a quick-minded person.
Just kidding.
So, yeah, you have to be careful now when you say. So, we have a good sense of humor around here. So. So really, I think that you have a lot to bring to the table.
And you all do.
And I think that every person does. And in order to embrace and enable people, we all have to come together. And yeah, it may not be the perfect way or the way that you would do it, but I say that everybody needs to do what works best, and we need to try and grow. You know, we do.
You'd be surprised how many people live in Sedona, or rather work in Sedona, but don't live in Sedona, and therefore they can't vote on it.
Oh, I'm
All right,
not
there's a
surprised.
lot.
I have a list. Yeah.
It's a long
It's a long list.
And the vote's in August for a reason. The vote's in August for a reason because the majority of a lot of our population is out of town, so they make sure their cronies are here to vote when we're gone.
that's the dilemma.
Well, it's not the dilemma because
What's
right
that?
now,
Who counts them? That's the question came up not too long ago. Who verifies the votes? You know, we should probably ask Dwight Kadar because I know that he volunteered a couple times because I asked him.
they're asking for volunteers to actually watch the polls and to help with that. So, well, I think there may even be the counters involved in the volunteers. They're asking at the C4 meetings on the first Thursday at the Cowboy Church, that they actually kind of ask for volunteers to get involved with all that, and they have sign-up sheets for that as well. So that might even be something that we should look toward and grab.
So, do you go to Ann Kelly's meetings?
I have gone to some of her meetings.
Okay.
I think that Kelly, her intention and her energy and brain power is laudable and very important. What I'm disappointed about
Mm-hmm.
That would make 3 organizations that
The-
also are ground.
I'm with you. The purpose is to bridge it all.
Well, I would say time is of the essence.
It is.
And I honestly, and again, I do understand what you're saying. I don't believe the Jehovah's Witnesses are good, decent people. But I wonder at the end of the year, how many people join? So we can't measure effort. We have to measure results. And the result is getting people not just fired up, but to be there August 2nd and to cast the ballot.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. You gonna play the video?
So, John, before the video starts, you don't feel that there's any necessity to get into any of the details. You feel that you have enough knowledge to create some passion by getting more people to vote.
Yes, I'm a confident that this season is out. I did not let you run through your whole slideshow. And so I don't know.
When we were full, we wouldn't have allowed you to do that. We were just, because we had a few, we thought, let's go ahead and answer the questions. But most of the questions would have been answered in what we were doing. But yeah, and then we'll go ahead and let this video run.
Home rule right now. And we have an election here in Sedona on August 2nd, where we, the people of Sedona, have the responsibility of either voting home rule in or voting it out. Now, we have the City Council trying desperately to tell all the citizens of Sedona to vote for home rule. But a lot of Sedona citizens are against home rule. So what is home rule, and why should we care about it? We're going to take a look at what home rule is, and then we'll show you what the ballot is going to look like, so you're ready for it. To understand home rule, we need to first understand how the state of Arizona gives Sedona a budget to follow. Every city in Arizona must follow the state's budget guideline. This guideline is called baseline. The state also refers to this as the state-imposed expenditure limitation. With baseline, the state allows Sedona to have a set amount of money. Let's say $35 million for the year. But if that's not enough for us, if the Sedona City Council, for instance, wants an additional $20 million, the City Council would then put together a proposal and present it to we, the people of Sedona. And that additional $20 million can be approved by a vote of the people if we decide it's a good idea. This is called a one-time override, and it's called that because we can decide to override the budget and increase it once a year in May. And we can do it every year to increase the state-imposed limitation to whatever we the people want it to be. With baseline, we can always get all the money we need for the city, and we the people of Sedona will always be informed and involved in what changes are being made in our city. Projects will never be initiated without us first knowing about it, deciding what we want, and then voting it in or voting it out. So, if that's baseline, what is home rule? Home rule is an alternative to baseline. Baseline is the state-imposed expenditure limitation, and home rule is the alternative expenditure limitation. What home rule does is it takes out the part of the process where the City Council has to ask us permission to spend the money on something. They don't have to tell us, the people of Sedona, anything. They can do whatever they want with the city budget And we, the people of Sedona, are not involved at all. It's like handing them our credit card and then looking the other way. This process gives all the power to the city employees and none to the people of Sedona. You can see why the City Council is so intent on getting all of us in Sedona to hand them all of our power. With Home Rule, we have no voice. If we vote Home Rule in on August 2nd, how long does it last? If we vote Home Rule in, it stays in place for 4 years before we can vote on it again. Think about how many changes can be made to Sedona without your permission in 4 years. Look at what has happened in the last 4 years without your permission that has been damaging our community. Home Rule has been in effect for years. In the last year alone, the population of Sedona has dropped, but the city decided to add over $1 million in paychecks for new city employees. We're getting smaller, and they're getting bigger. What can I do about this? If you want your voice back, vote no on Home Rule on August 2nd. If you want the city to ask you what you want, instead of doing whatever they want with the money, then vote no on Home Rule on August 2nd. They need you to vote Home Rule in on August 2nd, so they can keep all of their unlimited power and keep you out of the process. Get out and vote no on Home Rule on August 2nd. Take just a little bit of time and take your city back. Get out and vote no on Home Rule on August 2nd. Now, on voting day, the wording on the ballot can be very confusing, so let's go through what you'll see on the ballot. Here's the ballot from 4 years ago, but this year's ballot is going to look pretty much the same. If you need some more time to read through any of this, just pause the video. There will be a proposition proposing an extension of the alternative expenditure limitation. This is the Home Rule proposition. This year, it's called Ballot Measure 458. You'll see that voting yes will extend Home Rule, taking away your voice for 4 more years. And voting no will end Home Rule for the next 4 years, taking us back to baseline and allowing us to decide what's best for our city. Notice here how the description of a no vote doesn't mention anything about we the people of Sedona being able to use the annual override to increase the budget. This wording can be confusing, but don't be fooled. The state's imposed expenditure limitation will allow us all the money we want, and it will be your decision, not the city employees. You'll also find on the ballot a summary analysis of Home Rule. This is supposed to explain to you exactly what Home Rule is. The wording here can be confusing as well, so let's look at it. The numbers listed in this summary make it look like Home Rule gets the city of Sedona more money, and that the state expenditure limitation, baseline, gets the city less money. But once again, it leaves out the ability of the people of Sedona to use the annual override to approve all the money we want and need. It also leaves out the part where, with Home Rule, the city does not have to get our approval for what they do with our budget. Again, with Home Rule, they have all the power over all the money, and we have no voice. The state expenditure limitation is designed to keep the people of the city involved. Home Rule is not. So read the ballot carefully. Take your time, educate yourself, empower yourself, and then decide for yourself. If you want your voice back, if you want to decide what happens to Sedona using your tax money, then vote no on Home Rule August 2nd. For more information on Home Rule and Baseline, come to one of the free workshops listed in the description below.
Fantastic. When are you going to show that? No, I'm serious. At what point did you show that in your
Our
previous
last presentation, we showed it kind of towards the end, but we were going to move it forward.
Look, that, I don't know what you paid for it, I don't know who did it. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Do people watch TV Channel 3?
I don't know.
I've never heard of TV Channel 3.
I don't know, but it's a good question.
It's on Sedona.One, and it's on our websites.
So this is just news, Sedona.One.
Where is this available? Is it on CD? Could it be on CD? I don't know. Can't we make a CD of this and put this? Huh? Everybody's bill. What? You can't get them to run this as a public service?
We also
I mean, who can go down to the damn TV station and say, could you run this? Well, I doubt that that's true. I can't. What about the newspaper? You guys,
No, the Red Rock News is not on our side. They are heavily vested with the Chamber of Commerce, and they will do smear campaigns on anybody that says no on home rule. And they did so with Jennifer Strait, who's running.
how are we going to beat the chamber, the lodging, the,
You know how we're going to beat them? To me, the momentum is in our direction. You sit there, and when you see everything I see posted right now is vote out all incumbents, vote out all incumbents, vote out all incumbents. People want change, and this is change. We have to make them realize this is an incumbent. We're voting out the incumbents right along with the incumbent of home rule. And the momentum is in our favor because of the change that we want. And that's the message we have to drive home.
I'm with you, and I hope you hear that I am with you. You hear that?
We hear it.
Okay. I mean,
No, yeah, it's just.
No,
No,
I see your
I
passion.
have a large voice also. You know.
the question is, this thing, how do I know? See, you all are young. You're talking about,
I'm probably older than you.
but I mean, you're saying, I made a screenshot of what Seger did and I posted it. Ma'am, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on social media because I don't want to lose my mind any sooner.
What is our best way to reach you? What is our best way to reach you?
That's a good question because if you can reach me, then you can reach people who will go and vote. But a lot of us are not moving around with this.
Well, what do you look at?
What do you do?
Where do we reach the people that are not on social media right now?
Are you both not on social? Are you guys on social media? Okay.
You guys are on Facebook, so you're following all this stuff about Senator said this and that. Okay, but what does that do? Does that make you guys get so damn mad and you're going August 2nd, you've canceled your vacation, you've canceled your heart surgery, and you're going to vote? I know it's not enough. So
The thing is we can't sit here and think we can't make a difference or we won't make a difference.
The door is open, and if we don't step through that doorway, then we lose. We have to try everything we can, and we have to be flexible enough.
the city, how long is it on time? 7 minutes. Could we, this is an interesting one. Could we figure out a way to go to the city council meeting? You get 3 minutes at the podium. I sign up for 3 minutes. You sign up for 3 minutes, and sir, you've been quiet. You could take the last minute. We have a 7-minute, and
Oh, they've seen it already.
The mayor and the city council and everybody at home who's live streaming it, and it's on there forever. And your husband gets the credit, and that clear message in 7 minutes is, then you can say, go to the city council meeting on such and such a date, click at this moment so that you don't have to go through the whole goddamn 2-hour meeting. Click between this state and that state, and you will hear what we're trying to do. That's an idea, and I'll take the first 3 minutes, but as you all say, can't do it alone, and we ought to do it sooner rather than later, because it's just an idea, it's wild and crazy. But how are you going to beat Steve Segner if you're not as aggressive and clever as he and his crew?
I don't think he's clever.
Yeah,
think
they've seen this video on social media. As soon as they saw it play, they would like shut us down. But the council.
City council.
They can't shut us down.
But how are you going to get it to play on their videos?
Well, and that's a
You tell. Yeah, figure it out. Let's do the logistics.
Gary Myers. You know Gary Myers?
Yes.
Knows everything. I asked her several weeks ago in a face-to-face meeting with her. I said, is there any prohibition? Is there any law? Is there any policy that says that I couldn't use your overhead projector for my freedom of speech? Because I don't know if there is or not. But I would guess that the Freedom of Speech Act would not prohibit my having access to our property. So you have to ask in advance.
I'll ask around. He's already seen it.
They've
Scott,
all- they've
Jessica,
all seen
they've
it.
all seen it.
They've done their best to pick it apart.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
The city council meetings,
Well, here's the point.
they're kind of grueling to watch.
They're not going to watch the city council meeting. What you're going to say is, go to the city council meeting on whatever it is, August 1. To all these people. To all these people. Well, okay, it was an idea. I'm saying,
Yeah.
Do you know some of the HOAs that when they meet? I'm saying if we could go directly and play it at an HOA meeting if we.
However, I did look online. It's a good idea. And there was the list of all the HOAs and presidents, and I believe their emails. No emails? Just the names?
Just the name.
how about the Sedona Public Library? Do they have a screen that runs constantly?
Yeah, but they're kind of part of they're
They're in cahoots
Okay,
because they get
I got
yeah.
news for you. We're not going to win. Because everybody that I've said, every institution that I've mentioned, you've said, our newspapers. What happened to news? What happened to journalism?
It's not fair.
whacked for years. I mean,
So
they
how
changed
are
the
we
content. You said in an editorial, and they wrote a bad piece on me during Home Rule last time. And so I came back and I put in a thing to the editor. Well, they didn't post it for a long time, and then they posted it, and it wasn't what I wrote. And I went back to
We're
Graham and I
willing
said,
to
"What
go
the
multiple
hell?"
places.
And he says,
you help us
didn't
get in
read
the
small
doors, we'll
print."
be there.
The city of Sedona
Read the small print.
Library,
They're allowed to
a place
change
for
it.
education is not gonna
The
play
the
this.
narrative that they have passed this on in the past is that if you don't pass home rule, you're going to lose your library, which is so not true. It's a false narrative.
You're telling me that our
But they have the library.
Are you telling me that our head librarian, having watched this 7-minute video and is in the business of learning and education and opening minds and community, you're telling me that that woman who runs the library will not let that run on a loop in the library?
I'm telling you,
Oh,
yes.
ma'am, I'm going to give you my name and number. I got to go because I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I think this is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
It's just where our city is.
I think it's crazy, and you say that's the way the city is. Look, call me when you got 400 people that are willing to walk on 89A like the people did with Roe versus Wade the other day. Okay? Did you see that? Did you see 150 people with sticks? I did. And that's something that's way out there. And we can't get 150 people.
Oh, we can get 150
When?
people.
Let's do it. Call me, and I'll guarantee you.
And your number's on here?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
We'll call you.
I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I apologize for any rudeness.
Does he have a
The,
little bit of
the
passion?
library is in their hip pocket. It's the only
I
reason.
wish I had known that because I don't understand. I want to just tell you, for whatever it's worth, I don't understand how the library.
Let me explain right quick, because this doesn't take long. The library is a library district. It gets paid through through district taxes from Coconino and Yavapai in the tune of about $1.5 million a year. Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with the city. And then on top of that, they get good donations. They have assets on their tax records of in excess of $6 million. And then we still gifted the library through the city about $600,000. And they have the library, they're like, go ask the library if you think they're not going to be hurt. But the problem with that is it's double taxation. If the library wants more money, it needs to really go back to the district to a vote of the people to get it just like the school district and just like the fire district does.
But see,
that's not what's happening.
Yeah, but what you have here is you have vote buying. So they hit all the emotional buttons. We all love the library. But when you say you're going to hurt the library or you're going to hurt the Humane Society, you're going to hurt the Adults Community Center, and you're going to hurt recycles, they're hitting the emotional buttons. And those items are not going to be affected by home rule.
And you are, let me just be very, you are 100%. I mean, I watched that video, and if I showed that to the Secretary of State of Arizona, would that person have any objection to the content?
The only thing that they've objected on the content is it makes them feel like it's line. They say it looks. We're saying that we get to line item vote, and we don't.
That is the only item that they've complained about. That you
Get to
can
line item vote on the one-time override.
One graphic.
Yes.
The video seems to communicate.
Yeah. I would say
you can see the line items, but they're on the ballot a lump sum.
It's an easy fix for your husband. Go in there and say, this, let's be clear, it's not a line item, it's a total package. It's a 10-minute delay.
But they do have to give a description of what you're voting on, and they would be prudent to make sure you knew what you were voting on prior to the vote.
But
And-
you do understand, my question is, in this world of non-facts facts, if we sent this to the Secretary of State, would that pass in terms of being factual? Yes or no?
I didn't even know they did that. I really didn't even know that they.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
I said
No,
Secretary
to be honest with you, yeah.
Let the people
So
know.
that would be the only item that if I were to really critique it would be that one line
I'm
item.
not asking you, I'm talking about in the world of false information. Is there anything in that?
If there was,
Transcript
we'd have heard it by now.
Yeah.
Because they're nitpicking everything we do.
I mean, they're putting
had Scott
articles all
Jablow
over the place,
and-
everything we do.
No, we had them at our last meeting. I'm just saying.
He's an
And they sit
idiot,
and
but
went
he
through
got
everything.
people to write him these long, lengthy, analytical things of every single thing we've done wrong. And last night when we were going through it, it got so hysterical. And I said, if that's all they've got on us, it's just they're nitpicking everything. So it is a little fatiguing because we're both getting battled daily, where they're calling me names and they're doing these long articles. It's grueling.
Yeah, and it's like we get pulled into feeling like we need to answer things on social media because that's where the marketing is going right now on their side too. And so we're being pulled into that and trying to run meetings. and trying to run everything else. And so we're up at 6 a.m. and we're in bed at, at midnight to 2 o'clock in the morning. And, we're running on E. So we need your energy. We need your enthusiasm to come help push us over.
If you really feel that walking down 89A would make a difference, then
No, I don't think it would. I think walking into city council, into the council chambers,
yeah.
would make a difference. My analogy was, I was amazed in our little tiny town to see 150 men, women, and children with signs that were made walking down our little main street about Roe versus Wade.
They could have been from other towns coming in to make it look like we were protesting.
Yeah, they brought in a lot of.
Yeah, I don't know that we had that in our town.
Well, then I would suggest we do the same.
I feel you.
I'll do
Let's
it.
bring the people from Cottonwood in, and they don't check our things.
I spoke with Prescott, and they told me they're here to help their cousins across the hill. So, I had some people there, and they were talking about how when the rioters come in on Roe versus Wade, it gets shut down quickly with their little people, and they're like, we're here to help our, what's happening in Sedona is very important to us, and we're here to help our people over the hill. So that's actually a feasible option.
That's something that we can do, and we can take an action. We need to do a referendum. We need to get it on the ballot. We need people to vote it in.
Yes.
Yeah, it's initiative. So in that form, a lot of cities and towns, that's the way that you control city council. Don't let them raise your taxes. We've got some of the highest taxes, and they keep on wanting to raise it. They changed that sunset to a permanent. We need to drop the bed tax. We need to drop the sales tax, and we need to put a cap on it that they have to ask people. If we would have gone through our last slide, we would have seen this, and I'm gonna just read it to you because I think that you might find it interesting. The benchmarks on our cities and towns, Sedona proper is shrinking. Every other community, including VOC, is growing. Sedona has only 2 services. Flagstaff has 7. Prescott 6.
What do you mean
Cotton
services?
city services, wastewater and police are the ones the city has of Sedona.
That's all they're over.
What do you mean?
That
They control, they monitor, they produce.
like other things are either districts or privately owned companies that the city is not in charge of.
And the logical reason when you look at the benchmark, the reason why it doesn't work is because city council raises the taxes, city council raises does the budget whatever they want, and a balanced budget only means they can spend what they bring in. They raise the taxes, they can spend more. And they have no tourism authority. They farm everything out to the chamber, and the chamber is marketing the region. This region is being marketed to all different tourists. But you have
And realtors.
and construction and churches, people that are in the tourism. So you've got this real funcatated bias thing going, and the cash is the catalyst that goes through home rule.
You use the word catalyst.
Well,
What do you mean?
the engine, the gas, you can call
Well,
it
wait a
what.
minute. You're using too many words.
Okay.
The engine.
And why wouldn't I think less
No,
of
I mean, I just want you to. I don't want you to use words
that don't affect?
that don't matter. That don't. Yeah. No, a catalyst is like yeast.
Yeah.
It makes it happen. So when you say use the word catalyst again.
Yeah, the way home rule is the catalyst for the spending, for the function. It is.
It's an enabler.
It's the same thing. The yeast is, when I make bread, I put yeast in it. It's not going to start unless I put the yeast in.
Right. But
So if I put my flour there and I don't have my yeast, my dough's not going to rise. And I used to be a pastry chef, so I know that.
It's the fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, and you can use whatever, you can use more important words or more
Actually,
action.
That's a very important word. It's just that I thought that you were misusing it sometimes. Not misusing it, but not. I'm just about, you gotta get people I thought your video was fantastic. It's 7 minutes that tells the whole story. Even this benchmark thing, I'm not sure what this benchmark thing is telling me. Why do I care about this? Why do I care
Basically,
about it?
this is stuff that is
That-
getting flooded. It's the information to address things that they're getting flooded on the other side of the marker. Because
These are your data point check pieces. So for you, you're not a data-driven. So you like things in a different perspective.
No, I want to know, you have the title up there,
Smart.
benchmarks.
Benchmark is a comparison from one organization to the other, and
So
it
you're comparing
those
Sedona,
markers.
VOC, Flagstaff, Prescott, Cottonwood, Prescott Valley, and Camp Verde, right?
Yes.
And the benchmarks are population and services.
Not necess- and then the next column is tourism. Tourism marketing
and taxation.
and taxation. So we have
So what's the bottom line of all of that?
You-
What are you trying to tell me?
Basically-
Are we ahead or behind everybody?
Behind.
we are behind. We're
Well, why don't you get this lady's husband to take that red little diamond and make it huge? Because I'm colorblind for one thing, and I didn't even notice that it was upside down and red. I mean, my point is, here are some benchmarks. Folks, here's the highlights. Our population's going down, everybody else's is going up. Our services are 2. There's only one other person that's got less. Everybody else has got way more.
Okay.
Blah, blah, blah. I mean, it has to be.
I'm interested in his consultation on presentation. I think he's given you an example.
I apologize.
But I'm going to take him home.
See, who approves taxes?
is he like this 24 hours a day?
Who approves taxes? City council, voters, city council, city council. We gotta end this.
We have another meeting on Thursday if you want to be there.
There you go. You probably don't want me to be there.
I
Thank you
do.
so much. Good luck.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I am,
I would add on the Prescott, on the home rule, I put a little asterisk because it's home rule with control on tax.
Right, and it does show that. But it takes a while for your eyes to actually see it.
Yeah, it's underneath. So if you look at voters approve the taxes, it's a charter city, it has a city office of tourism, and it's under home rule. And those are the elements that make it function.
No, but where is it that the voters control the tax?
Right here,
Yeah, my pointer's not working.
right under,
Yeah, right